So, interpreting slope. Well, you know what slope is. It's this rise over run thing. So in the context of a graph, I think you could have told me that's rise and that's run. I think you'd be good at that. But what if it's in the context of the real world? And real world equations have one part that doesn't change. See that 5? No matter what we put in, you're always going to add 5 to it. That doesn't change. That's called a constant. It's constantly 5. But then this x can change. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 10. All right, so there's a constant part and a part that changes, and this is called the rate of change. When you get to calculus, which you eventually will, you get through this class, eventually the kids who are doing the best in here are going to go to pre-calc next year. After pre-calc, you take calc, whether that's in high school or college. Most of you guys will end up taking calculus. It's just kind of where most math classes end. And then at the end of calculus, you can usually be done if you're going to be a business major. But if you're going to be an engineer, you got to take a couple more calculuses. But most kids will get through calculus. When you get to calculus, it's all about this rate of change. So this is a rate. It goes 2 in the one way and 3 in the other direction. 2 rise and 3 run. All right, well, what about if it's in the real like this? So at first, this might annoy you. But if it's about a hamburger and toppings, do you get that T stands for toppings? Have you ever been to a restaurant where they charge you for extra toppings? I have. And I'm usually like, dang, you're going to charge me $1 just to put on some, like, chopped up tomato? But that's how, one of the ways that they make it fair to have one person who wants a crap ton of stuff on their hamburger and another person just wants the burger. All right, so this is the 190 is for the burger. And it's $1.40 for each topping. And then you can choose T as 0 toppings. Just want the burger, it's going to cost you $1.90. And in this system, you actually get a fairly cheap hamburger. But if you wanted to have like mushrooms and cheese and fried onions, all of a sudden your hamburger is going to be, 3 toppings, and then it gets to be expensive. All right, so what's the y-intercept part? That is this part. The y-intercept is the $1.90. And what does it mean? It means you have to pay $1.90 no matter what. Even if your toppings is 0, it's the minimum. Like the lowest you'd pay. You got to pay $1.90 or you're not going to get a burger. What's the slope? That's the $1.40. And what does it mean? Well, it's price per topping. Per means divide, by the way, if you didn't know that. Price per topping. It's the price divided by the toppings, and you get one topping for $1.40. So it's like $1.40 for one topping. If Jody paid $3.30 for her hamburger, can you tell she paid more than the $1.90 and therefore she must have got a topping? All right, so if you were going to put that in, a classic mistake is kids are so used to always putting it in here that they would put in 3.3 right there, but that doesn't make sense. Your toppings wasn't 3.3. So get used to, you could put it here too. And that's where the 330 should go, is right there. And in math, 3.3 is the same as 330. Okay. So look, I got an equation. 3.3 equals 1.9 in math. You don't have to have that 0 at the end. In the real world, you'd say $1.90 plus 1.4 T. This is definitely one where you're going to want a calculator. So if you have to, use your iPad, but write this equation down and solve it. Write this down. We put the 3.3 in the equation, and now we're just going to solve for it. I am always thinking about your next test because I know that I got to get you ready for it. So far, I'm feeling pretty good about it because you guys have averaged really strong grades, which is awesome. But, of course, each test is harder, because we now expect you to know how to solve this. test, this would have been the problem. They would have given you that, and then you had to solve it. Now on this test, you have to write the equation by sticking this 3.3 in the right spot, and then solve the equation. So it like gets more complicated each time. All right, so if we're gonna start solving this thing, in my high school, I was taught, well, just move this to the other side. If you don't like that, oh, by the way, and make it negative. If you don't like that way, you can say minus 1.9 on both sides. That's nothing wrong with that. And alrighty, I'm wishing I had my calculator out. I do have one over here. I personally have an iPad, but why would I want to do it on the iPad if you had a real one? It's just so much easier to have the real one. Don't have to switch screens all the time and stuff. And I know some of you are good at split screening, and that's fine. So I'm going to take my 3.3 and I'm going to subtract 1.9, and I get 1.4, and I have, that's gone. Like in my high school, we just moved it to the other side, so it would have been gone also. 1.4t. Got to get this alone. Always ask yourself, have I got the t alone yet? Nope. So how do I get rid of the 1.4? Common mistake, it says subtract 1.4. What should I do? Divide by 1.4. Interesting. 1.4 divided by 1.4 is 1, but actually think about it. Wouldn't it have been weird if she had had 1.3 toppings? Like, it should be a whole number, because when you're actually at a restaurant, if it comes out to 2.5, then something's wrong, because you only can buy one topping or two toppings or three toppings. All right, so there, t equals 1. You see how that worked? You see how it made you solve a two-step equation after making the two-step equation. All right, move on to this one. This time, it's about not hamburgers. Read it. Try to answer these 3 questions. And I'll ask, after each one, I'm going to ask a different kid using the dice of destiny to pick you, so you know I'm not picking on you. And if you're stuck, I'll walk you through it. But one thing you should get used to is if I call on you and you don't know, just saying I don't know doesn't get me to call on somebody else. The reason I do that is to keep kids from just going, I don't know, so that they can not have to answer the question. If you say I don't know, I'm going to slowly walk you through the answer. All right. So maybe it'd be smart to talk to the kid next to you first before I call on people, so that you aren't caught completely off guard. On this last one, I don't expect you to have solved it yet, but you should know where to stick the 19. There's only 2 spots you could put it. Okay, why don't you talk to that kid next to you and see if you're getting the same things they are. Okay. So what is the y-intercept and what does it mean? I encourage you to talk to the kid next to you. This is the last chance to do that. I'm going to pause for while you talk to the kid next to you. So, what is the y-intercept and what does it mean? Yes?
5 basically means like the minimum you need to enter the fair.
Yes, and this is the minimum to enter the fair. All right, so you got to pay 5 minimum. Next up, row 1, person 6. Amina, that's you. What is the slope in this problem? And what does that mean in the context of this problem? The cost per ride. Very good. So it costs you $1.75 for each ride that you do. If AI spent 19, AI is probably better interpretation for nowadays, but if Al spent 19 at the fair, I hope you knew that that 19 went right there. And then you could solve it. Again, I hope that this is something I don't even have to like remind you, but you should have subtracted 5. That's easy pants. And then all of a sudden you've got 14 equals 1.75 r. And you divide both sides by 1.75 and you get your answer. All right. Let's go on to the next one. This time it's in a picture. Now the minimum, think about the minimum, the y-intercept. in this graph. All right, the minimum, the lowest it can be, is 0. But it goes up some amount for each, well, this is about newspapers delivered, so for each N for newspaper, you could have put P, you could have put X, but it's gonna go up some amount. That's a slope. The nice spots to look for are like right there. See how it hits 0, 0 here and 20, 5 there? Do you get that that is 2 points? The point 0, 0 and the point 20, 5? Okay. So I got 2 points. Make the slope. If you can't find a slope from 2 points, you're going to fail the next test. Not kidding. Slope is for sure important. Find that slope. Now, I get it would have been weird to find these points, but they're there. If you don't like the other way of finding slope, if you always get slopes right, ignore me. But if you're like getting slopes wrong, I showed a kid this way yesterday and he seemed to like it. You always start with the last number. That's how you start finding your slope, the last number. And then you got to remember that slopes are a subtract. So I'm going to subtract the other last number. And then the only 2 numbers that are left are the 20 and the 0, so I'm going to subtract those. And that's weird. It turns out to be 5 over 20. Well, that's okay. Can you reduce 5/20ths? I'm good at reducing because I do it like this. 1 times 5, 1 times 4. I should do 5 times 4 because then the 5 will cancel. Doink, 1/4. So the slope is 1/4. Think you could have got a slope from this drawing? Remember, the drawing was really there to give you those 2 points. And from 2 points, you can find a slope. That's enough for that problem. On to the next one. We're on the last page, by the way. Okay. We have to review some other stuff, but write a linear equation in slope-intercept form. Ooh, what the heck is slope-intercept form? That's like this. Oh yeah, one of those. Except it's $20 plus $2 per hour. Heck, by guessing, I got the first part right. There you go. 20 plus $2 for each hour. The X could be H for hours. This is the kind of equation, you just have to be able to say whenever they go like slope-intercept, you got to know it looks like this, one of these kind. And that means you'll have to find the slope and you'll have to find the minimum amount or the y-intercept. Okay, write an equation for this one. Problem 6. We're almost done. Stay focused. 2 more minutes. This is all the new stuff for today. It's just about understanding how you could have a real world problem and it could turn into a slope. By the way, I'm fine with you always starting with y equals. Even though it might be like repair costs, you don't have to call it R for repair or C for cost. I'm fine with you just starting with y equals. 50 plus 25 for each hour. There you go. That's all there is to that one. No help on number 7. You got this? You write equations?
And Mr. Rick,
Yes.
does it matter where you place the 20 and the 2?
So, do you mean like if you started with 20
Yeah.
plus 2x? I'm okay with these two being reversed. I just want you to know that like these, usually the variable's first, but even I wrote it backwards that time, so it's okay. All right. Now this is burns at, and if you put plus, you're saying it grows at a 1/2 inch per hour. Do you get that it should be minus? The candle does not get taller, right? So you have to subtract from its height. We had a problem like this on our last test where it was like, he's got $500 and he's gonna spend this money. You had to know that that meant if he started with a height of 6 in this case, and spending or shrinking or burning off would be negative. You'd have to know that. Same idea with a temperature that's falling. Last question on the last slide. Good shot. All right. Temperature is 15, falling 2 per hour. There you go. All right. So, what's next? I bet that only half of you will know how to graph this equation, and that we got to get straight so that you don't do this wrong on the test. X equals 5. Graph that. If you're one of the kids that doesn't know, you can start with a dot, but the answer isn't a dot. Graph x equals 5. The answer is not just a dot. So far, I have looked at a bunch of iPads. 0 kids have it right. Okay, now I've seen about 4 kids have it right. Some people are doing y equals 5 by accident. Some people are doing it right. Some people just have a dot. At least they know that they started with a dot. All right. So, I was right. A lot of people don't know. This is where x equals 5 starts. There's nothing wrong with that. If you didn't at least go through that, you had no idea what you were doing. If you thought it was the other, some other place, didn't go through that dot, then you got to check yourself. X is the x-axis. Has to go through that dot. And then it goes this way. Raise your hand if you're one of the kids that had that right. Okay, good. If you didn't know that, get that through your head. That's the line x equals 5. If you wanted y equals 2, it'd be like that. And how would you know that? Well, look, if I start with y equals 2 as a dot, then I hope you realize if you went the other way, then this would be like y equals 3, y equals 4, y equals 1. That wouldn't make any sense. You can't do those, so the line y equals 2 goes across. So y equals 2 is horizontal. So it's like, why is it horizontal? I don't know if that's going to help you. Remember, the y's are the horizontal ones. Why are they horizontal? Okay. All right. And then if I asked for a slope of 5, you'd know to write this. I should probably be careful. Start with some other number than 5. Let's say 2. That has a slope of 5. Agreed? Okay. What if I wanted to be parallel to it? Which slope should I use? Say it if you know it. 5. Parallel is the easy kind. The other one, perpendicular, tons of kids are going to write -5 and it's wrong. Perpendicular to this, would you please write me an equation that is perpendicular to it? It's such a little easy thing, but if you don't know it, there goes another point on your test. Usually what happens is kids are going to make 1 or 2 just dumb mistakes because they're like, just wasn't thinking. But each extra thing you don't know, like which way to graph x equals 4, each extra thing costs you another 5% off your test. So are you going to know how to do perpendicular? You can use anything for this first number. I don't care. You could even use the same number of 2. But the 5 has to turn into -1/5. Raise your hand if you knew that one for perpendicular. All right. Didn't know that. Lock that into your brain. It's not just negative. It is the opposite, but it's also flipped. Would you agree 5 is the same as 5/1? So you flip it to 1/5. Oh, is that not a question? Okay. All right. Now, I have a little quiz for you. It's super short. Don't put your stuff away quite yet. I just want to make sure that I've covered everything. Oh, wait. The most important equation. Y minus y. Help me finish this. Say it out loud if you know. Y minus y what?
Equals
No. Something before equals.
equals slope.
No. Before the equals.
1.
Y1. Then equals, and then m, and then x minus x1. Good. Now, if I tell you a point, you're going to put it here and here. And if I tell you a slope, you're going to put it there. Okay? Let's do this one, but with a 3 here and here. I know it's 3 both places. Maybe that's confusing. But can you multiply this all out and solve for y? This is like the hardest kind of easy one, if you know what I mean. It's supposed to be easy, but yet there's a lot of steps. Yeah, you're distributing. Remember, solve for y. That's going to get you slope intercept. This is point slope. What you want is slope intercept. Solve for y. All it is distributing, and literally one step. Sorry, I can't subtract. There. Did you get 5x minus 12? Okay, cool. Then, there's going to be some poor kid, when I ask what was the point here, is going to say -3 comma -3. What was it actually? 3. Remember, you use the opposite of the number you see. So if I give you this, you don't have to write this, just look. Do you get that the point here is not 5, 7 at all? That's wrong in like 3 ways. They say that a good teacher knows the common mistakes and then points them out so the kids won't do those. Here's what you should have had. -7, 5. Raise your hand if you knew that. Okay, good. Then, here is an 8-question little quiz to just see if you're on track. And that is all we have for the video for today.